Shalom, 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 shalom. Praise the eternal Yah. We're so good to see you out there, Gershon. Thank you. Shalom to you, brother. And let me just make sure I got things rolling here. We decided, you know what, today in our in our calendar, according to our calendar, it's the 25th day of the ninth month, the 25th month of Kislev, which is the essentially the pagan name. Was that you? AJ? Praise Yah. Good to see you there. We've been praying for you, sister, about today. I hope all went well, or at least better than bad, and that some progress was made. And we really prayed a lot for you guys, including Gershon, who's also with us. Shalom, shalom. So we're doing a teaching on Chanukah, and I might say reluctantly because a lot of people think of Hanukkah as the Jewish Christmas. They think of dreidels. They think of Hanukkah gelt, the little chocolate and little chocolate discs and such. Oh, what does that say? Thanks so much. I have to go back and speak to the Family Law Center. Okay. Well, that sounds like progress. That sounds like you're talking to the right people, Yah willing, if it's just moving along. And that's why today is so important. And what I want to emphasize is dedication. Chanukah comes from the word Chanuk. And we're not talking about Eskimos there, Chanukah of the North. What's that now? Okay, you're going to have to read that for me, Regina. I can't.
Give me a second.
And Valerie, shalom, shalom.
And Bella Joy has an urgent vet appointment,
right.
Severe infection overnight. She's looking really bad, but maybe the free coupon vet visit. Hallelujah. Appreciate prayers.
Amen. Yeah, you definitely got them.
Valerie was saying good evening from
I see that.
land of Goshen,
right.
California.
So we have Valerie from Goshen, and we have Gershon from Valerie. No. I wonder what part of Cali are you from there, Gershon? Anyway, you respond when you can. That's okay. But anyway, this day that we celebrate, this is the 25th of the ninth month, which is officially the beginning of this mini moed. It's not one of the appointed times listed in Torah. Southern California. All right. A lot of surfboarding out there. Praise Yah. Okay, let me get down to the facts here. Like I said, Chanach is the word to dedicate. The prime root is to narrow. The narrow way as opposed to the broad way. The narrow way leads to the way of Yah, the way of dedication. And we need to dedicate. And again, we generally, when we celebrate, or those who do celebrate, because it's almost 50-50 at this point, because of all the trappings that come with this yom, these 8-day period, perhaps, of just being, like I said, something like a Jewish Christmas type of a thing, which we're not getting. We're gonna have to touch on any of the pagan aspects. We're gonna focus on what was done, and actually, there are 4 separate Hanukkahs, and we're gonna go through all 4 of them. And I pray that you are interested, and this is a tov thing. And okay, let me get this ready here. Okay, I got my notes here. I don't want to be. I got my scriptures and all my ammunition here. So in Torah, the dedication of a house, okay, was a given. It needed to be dedicated. You buy a new home, it's dedicated. That all that goes on within is living up to the covenant potential that we all, each and one of us have, right? Whether it's an apartment, you're renting, it's still the place where you dwell, right? So it was the dedication of the house was given a top priority, okay, and it even affected as to whether or not one could effectively serve in the military. we see in Deuteronomy 20, verse 5, it says, "What man is there who has built a new house and has not dedicated it, has not hanach, has not dedicated? Let him go and return to his bait, lest he die in the battle and another man dedicate it." Okay, so it was very important. The place where you live is not just a place traditionally where you hang your hat, right? But it is a special place where you dwell. And it actually, in tradition, the home was like a miniature version of the temple. The father was the Kohen, was the priest. The table was the altar, and the service of food was the communion with each other and with Yah. So it was very, very sacred idea. So again, you can't just go if you go to join the military services and you have not dedicated the Bait, which is the house. And the temple is translated the Beit HaMikdash, the temple. Temple is the house of Kadosh, of holiness, okay, of set apartness. So your home represents you, just like at Pesach, when the home that you dwell needed to have the consecrated blood on the doorpost and the lintels to declare that that house was safe from the destructor, right? So very important to understand that. And David really wanted to dedicate the Beit HaMikdash, but because of his questionable things from here and there, including the fact that he was a warrior, he had blood on his hands. However much he was still was favorable to Yah. Yah gave him his favor, and yet he was unable to build the Beit HaMikdash, right? And so we see in First Chronicles 22:5, it says, "Now David said, Shlomo, my son, is young and inexperienced, and the house to be built for Yahuwah must be exceedingly magnificent, okay, famous and glorious throughout all countries. Okay, I will now make preparations for it." So David made abundant preparations before his death. Then he called for his son, Shlomo, Solomon, and charged him to build a house for Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yisrael. And David said to Shlomo, "My son, okay, as for me, it was in my mind to build a bait, a house, for the name of Yahuwah, my Elohim." Okay, but the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, "You have shed much blood and have made great wars. Therefore, you shall not build a house for my name, because you have shed much blood on the earth in my sight." Okay, so again, it was up to Shlomo, whose name means peace, right? And interesting that we see that the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, and we did the teaching of the Memra. It's like an anthropomorphic approach to what the word. The word literally comes to him and speaks to him. And we know that the Memra, the Logos, is the word of Yah. And we believe it's being personalized for a very specific purpose. And we're going to see that later on in the word here, about the word coming to me and saying, with the authority of the Father, the word delivers the message. He is a malach, he's a messenger, he is sent by Yah, the Father. So again, the word comes to him saying, "Behold," okay, or that message that says, we see later on, "Behold, a son shall be born to you, who shall be a man of rest," okay, a man of Shabbat, essentially, and I will give him rest from all his enemies all around. His name shall be Shlomo, for I will give shalom and quietness, okay? So Shlomo is shalom, okay, to Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name. He shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. Forever. And of course, that was done through the greater son of David, who was the Mashiach. But Shlomo, David had blood on his hands. He was a warrior. And the Beit HaMikdash, there's no violence there outside of the sacrifices, which is Unfortunately for the animals, it's a little bit violent, but he was not able to do that. But Shlomo, whose very name means peace, Shalomo, okay? And through him and through the greater son, as Mashiach himself says, one greater than Solomon is here, the greater son of David. And in fact, Ben David was a code name for Mashiach, as we know. So 2 Chronicles 3:1 says, Now Shlomo began to build the Beit Yahuwah at Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where Yahuwah had appeared to his father David, at the place that David had prepared on the threshing floor of Ornan, the Jebusite. And remember, the Jebusites were those who had Jerusalem, which was known as Yavuz, Jebus, right? And he began to build on the second day of the second month in the fourth year of his reign. Okay, and now we see the dedication and the strategy behind the dedication by Solomon, 2 Chronicles 5:3. Therefore all the men of Israel assembled with Melech Shlomo at the feast, which was in the seventh month. And this is talking about Sukkot, which went on for 7 days plus the eighth great day, Shemini Atzeret. So it was essentially an 8-day feast. Okay? So according to 1 Kings 6:38, the temple was completed in the 8th month at Solomon's 11th year, which is roughly between September-October 959 BC. This celebration took place 11 months later in Solomon's 12th year. So again, the symbolism of 12, the united Israel, right? And also the fact that he waits all that time to dedicate the house, and he dedicates it during Sukkot. So again, Sukkot is Yah dwelling with his people, right? The word became flesh and set up his sukkah in our midst. We did that teaching during Sukkot, that Messiah is Emmanuel, Yah with us. And continuing, Second Chronicles 7:5, and Melech Shlomo, King Solomon, offered a sacrifice of 22,000 bulls, 120,000 sheep, and the Melech, the king, and all the people dedicated the Beit Yahuwah, Beit Elohim, rather. And it's interesting that all the people are involved in the dedication. It's not just the Kohanim. We all dedicate the home, the house, the dwelling place, right? And just so we see the Hebrew in that, it's Vayach Nechu. So we see the dedication, and then we see Yachanach in there. Okay, so they dedicated Aleph Tav Beit Ha Elohim. So again, the Beit is described as the Aleph Tav Beit. So it's the Et, it's the Aleph Tav. It's again, the Et is always referred to in tradition as the sign of the direct object as far as the grammatical structure of the sentence. But we've learned more than that. The Aleph Tav is Mashiach, the first and the last. He is the word who comes to us to speak to us through his word and through his ruach. And he also is the Aleph Tav. He points to the direct object. He directs our path, and he's our guide forever. So I think it's important that we see that. And all the people dedicated the house of Yah. Okay? And it's the Aleph Tav and Beit. Again, he's part of the dedication. Through him, we are part of that dedication process. Okay? Verse 9. And on the 8th day, they held a sacred assembly, for they observed the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the feast 7 days. Okay, Sukkot, of course, is 7 days, followed by Shemini Atzeret, the 8th great day. Okay, I got a lot of stuff here. That's why I'm skimming through. I want to be focused because we don't want this to be too drawn out. But I'm hitting on all the great points. Okay, so that was the first, the Yachad, the Yachad Chanukah. The first dedication of the temple was not through the Maccabees. The first was with Solomon and the initial dedication to the house of Yah. Okay, the second Hanukkah takes place after the exile, which occurred after the falling away and the profaning of the Sabbaths, and Judah becoming captives of Babylon. They are allowed to return to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. Okay, and we see Nehemiah and Ezra as being involved in that process of the second dedication, known as the Temple of Zerubbabel, who was one of the officials, one of the ancestors of the royal line. Okay, now the dedication, or the Chanukah, of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought out the Levites in all their places to bring them to Jerusalem to celebrate the dedication with gladness, both with thanksgiving and singing, and cymbals and stringed instruments and harps. And we go to Ezra chapter 6:15. Says, now the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, was finished on the third day of the month of Adar, which is in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. Then the Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, and the priests and Levites, and the rest of the descendants of the captivity celebrated the dedication, the Hanukkah, for this house of Elohim with joy, with simcha. Okay, so that's Hanukkah chapter 2. Okay, once again, all seems to be well for a while, right? Until a need arises for a third Hanukkah, which, of course, is the most famous one, which most people think of immediately when they think of Hanukkah. Most famous for many, but the least known and often misunderstood one. Okay, and here I'm going to give you a little bit of a historical background. Okay, so I hope you're all sitting down, all tucked in and comfy. Okay, in 333 BC, Alexander the Great, a Greek from Macedonia, conquered a great portion of the Mid-East, including Judea and Samaria, the northern and southern kingdom. Okay, as predicted by Daniel the prophet, the Navi, upon Alexander's death several years later, his kingdom was divided and given to his 4 generals. And again, we're going to see the number 4. You're going to be amazed how often that number pops up. And it's no coincidence. It's a very universal number, very specific number. That's why today is the 4th day of the week. And all of the seasonal markers happen to be on the day leading up to the first day of the following month. Next Wednesday is actually the Chodesh for the 10th month. Okay, the 4 generals. The Ptolemy family inherited Egypt and the surrounding areas, and the Seleucid family acquired Syria and in various environs there. These 2 houses were constantly at war with each other for the next 200 years or so. Judea was part of the kingdom of Egypt until 200 BC, when King Antiochus III, the Great, of Syria, defeated King Ptolemy, Ptolemy IV, and Epiphanes of Egypt at the Battle of Panium. And Judea then became part of the Empire of Syria, and King Antiochus III wanted to make peace, shalom, with his new Jewish subjects. So this is Antiochus numero tres, He was he was cool. He guaranteed them the right to live according to their ancestral customs and to continue to practice their faith in the Temple of Jerusalem. However, in 175 BC, Antiochus IV, known as Epiphanes, which essentially means, the deity in the flesh, the son of Antiochus III, invaded Judea, presumably at the request of the sons of Tobias. Now we get into some hairy territory here. The Tobians, who led the Hellenizing Jewish faction, those who were Grecian in culture and practice, through and through, the Hellenizing faction in Jerusalem, were expelled, to Assyria around 170 BC, when the high priest Onias and his pro-Egyptian faction wrested control from them. Okay, the exiled Toviads lobbied Antiochus IV, the Epiphanes, to recapture Jerusalem. And we see in the Maccabean account, we see the whole Maccabean 1 and 2. In the first chapter of First Maccabees, verse 12, it says, "There emerged from Israel a set of renegades who led many people astray. Come, they said, let us ally ourselves with the Gentiles," okay, who were surrounding us, okay, "for since we separated ourselves from them, many misfortunes have overtaken us." So they're blaming on kadoshness, set apartness, holiness, for being why they were in the predicament they were in. They were immersed in the Grecian culture. In fact, we see this in the book of Acts too. Remember, where the Talmudim, the disciples and the believers had the favor of the peoples, and all of a sudden, the Grecian Jews come in, and they're the ones who stirred the pot and created a lot of the turmoil. Okay, so whatever situation you're in, never blame it because, well, it's because I'm following this stupid faith, or I was better off as an unbeliever, and that's never true. You got to look a little. If you feel that way sometimes, dig a little deeper. You'll say, well, I shouldn't be thinking that way. Okay, and again, the compromise. They're referred to as renegades, those who seek assimilation and secular humanism, literally breakers of Torah, an expression that's found in the Septuagint of this. Okay, and that phrase is translated in Hebrew as sons of Belial, Deuteronomy 13:14, and Belial is satanic. So they're saying that these renegades are satanic, and those who would depart from the ways of truth to the way of error. Just like Messiah said, I didn't come to abolish Torah, came to fulfill it. I didn't come to destroy, mangle, redefine, and misteach Torah. I came to give it fullness. And a lot of people still don't understand what that's all about. And again, one of the things that this Grecian mindset came, which is still prevalent within Rabbinic Judaism, even though they claim we cut ties with the Grecian mindset, but they haven't. They haven't. There's a lot of that strain worked its way over the years. And in fact, they believe, especially the book of Bereshit, is allegory. They don't really believe it's literal. And I used to believe that certain parts were literal, some parts, but I was convicted of that. The word is the word. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes forth from Yah. It's not allegorical. It's not, it's, little stories to give little tidbits of truth. Okay. And Titus Flavius Josephus was one of the great recorders of history. Okay. And in his great volume, The Jewish War, okay, he's a very famous historian. He's always quoted by a lot of people. He's got these volumes, but he claims the king, being there to dispose beforehand, complied with them and came upon the Jews with a great army and took the city by force and slew a great multitude of those that favored Ptolemy. And again, Ptolemy was the one who was telling the Yehudim they could keep their religion, go to the temple, do what they need to do. We want to make things easy on them. Okay? And sent out his soldiers to plunder them without mercy. He also spoiled the temple and put a stop to the constant practice of offering a daily sacrifice of expiation. Okay? So here we see a problem, right? And it started because certain expatriates, so to speak, those who had fallen away, are saying, hey, let's go to Jerusalem and change it over and make it more Greek. And this took place for 3 years and 6 months. Foreshadowed period of time, right? We hear that number numerous times. And in 167 BC, Antiochus ordered an altar of Zeus to be erected in the Beit HaMikdash. Yes, our temple, right? Sacrificing pigs and unclean beasts, forcing Yehudim to eat unclean meats, unclean flesh, and to end Sabbath keeping and circumcision, and to profane the Shabbat, forsaking the Torah and all of its observances, basically making them spiritual eunuchs. Everything else is fine, but besides that, everything was pretty good. Not at all. Okay. About then, Betzayahu ben Yochanan, the son of John. Okay. Son of Shimeon, a Kohen of the line of Yoariv, left Jerusalem and settled in Modane. He had 5 sons, fired with zeal, and he slew both a Jew who was willing to offer pagan sacrifice on the altar in Medine, and the king's commissar, who was there to enforce the sacrifice, and tore down the altar, sort of like what happened with Phineas. Remember Pincus, who stops the plague by slaughtering the apostate with his pagan wife, remember? And, okay. Then he fled with his sons into the hills. And isn't that usually what happens? Go to the hills. Messiah said, go to Hela, go to this, settle into his Talmudim. And it happened where, there was a Roman contingency that was removed, creating a place to exit from Jerusalem, which was the place where this was all going down, right? Matthew 24:15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the Navi, standing in the Kadosh place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And you notice Messiah specifically is trying to get their attention because in the first century, the events of Antiochus Epiphanes was a past event. And we say, that was what Daniel had prophesied. Okay, so that's a past event. They say, no, pay attention because this is very relevant for you in your day. And the generation, it's going to revisit you, the destruction of the temple. Okay, this time for good or for bad. And again, the fleeing to the hills. Okay. Daniel prophesies all these events that occur in 1 and 2, although Daniel Messiah's events were priest were past. Okay. Yeshua is careful to warn his Talmudim, his listeners, that a similar series of events, okay, would occur in the future, in 70 AD, in fact, when Rome destroyed the temple and again displaces the peoples. Okay? And one more insidious than Antiochus Epiphanes, if you can believe that, namely the anti-Mashiach enters the world stage and triggers the events leading to Messiah's return. And I'm going to be doing a teaching on the beast, the mark of the beast. I'm going to do that in a few weeks down the road, okay? So Jerusalem was uninhabited, like a desert desolation. Not one of her children entered in or came out. The sanctuary was trampled on, and foreigners were in the citadel. It was a habitation of pagans. Joy had disappeared from Jacob, and the flute and the harp were silent. So our house is overrun by criminal invaders. It kind of sounds like what's going on in the world today. We have these invasive forces coming in, and a lot of people saying, isn't that wonderful? Just like these renegades who were telling Antiochus Epiphanes to come in and enjoy his stay in Jerusalem, right? Terrible. So many tragic and heroic examples are left for us to discover in the pages of 1st and 2nd Maccabees. I'm not going to go there, but just so you know, and please feel free to read those accounts. It's very interesting. By 166 BC, Netanyahu had died, and Yehuda, his son, took his place as leader. Okay? He was known as the Hammer. Okay? The Makali, which was an acronym for Michamocha Boalim Yahuwah. Okay? Who was like unto thee among the Elim are you, O Yah, which is why he was known as Makali. Okay? By 165 BC, the Jewish revolt against the monarchy was successful. And the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, was liberated and rededicated, and the festival of Chanukah was instituted to celebrate this event. A great miracle happened here, right? You've heard that before. So if this is new to you, Chanukah, it's good historically to be aware of it. But again, after a couple generations of the Hasmoneans, the priesthood took a trip down south. They really started becoming corrupt and such. So just like with Ezra, there are certain things about Ezra that's not too savory later on and such. The things he set in order were the Sanhedrin, and of course we know the Sanhedrin established the Noahide laws where Gentiles who keep the Sabbath are to be beheaded. And that's still standing, by the way. As you remember, a couple of weeks ago we did a teaching on that. So Judah ordered the temple to be cleansed. Okay, a new altar to be built in place of the polluted one. This is important. Pay attention here. It's very interesting. Okay? And new kadosh, holy set-apart vessels to be made. And to pour oil, pure oil, with the seal of the Kohen Agadol, with the high priest, was needed, and only one flask, good for 1 day, was found. It would take 8 more days for more to be produced. Okay? First Maccabees 4:36. Then Yehuda. She said that? I thought he said something. I'm sorry. Then Yehuda and his brothers said, now that our enemies have been crushed, let us go up to purify the sanctuary and eradicate it. See, the success of the Maccabees against the Syrian Greeks worked against the rabbinic mindset in the first century, where they thought, okay, let's fight Rome. Let's fight the Romans. No, it was a disaster. It led to tragedies and torture and horrific situations that happened to the Jewish populations. Whereas the followers of Mashiach had left and went to Pela, okay, and reestablished themselves there while this was going down in the first century. And it's interesting that Messiah said, look to Daniel for your answers. And we go, well, let's look at Revelation, let's look at Thessalonians, let's look at Corinthians. Let's look at the book of Daniel. And the thing is, that's interesting, is Daniel has some Aramaic in there, which we know is still a good language. It was the common language of the day in the first century, and it's not far from the Hebrew. In fact, most likely Messiah spoke Aramaic, and Hebrew was left for the worship, just like it is today, right? Where you have people speaking Yiddish most of the time, but in the Torah portions, they read the Hebrew, of course. They know both. And we know that in the book of Daniel is where Mashiach, when he was arrested, brought before the Kohanim, he says, tell us. Okay, and we're going to see something similar happening here. Tell us. And he then, are you claiming that you're equal with Elohim? Is that what you're saying? And he says, after saying nothing for a long period of time, he opens his mouth and talks about the Bar Hadosh, which is the son of Adam, the son of man, shall descend, because it's in the Aramaic, shall descend. So in other words, the cat was out of the bag. They says, we don't need any more. That's it. He's incriminated himself. And even though we know that the prophets often refer to themselves as Ben Adam, the Son of Man, okay. But with Mashiach, when he talked to himself as being the Son of Man, he was talking about the Bar Chanosh, the Son of Man, who comes from the Shemayim and establishes all of his final works as the line of the tribe of Judah, right? And so what the rabbis decided to do was to take Daniel out of the Navaim, because remember the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, otherwise known as the Old Testament, is divided in three parts. You have Torah, okay, you have the Navaim, you have the prophets, and you have the Ketuvim, which are the writings, the Psalms and Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, etc., etc. And they put Daniel in with the Ketuvim. He's not even in the Navaim. So here we go. The fix is in. The fix is in. The politics and all this garbage over the years. Praise Yah, we are where we are, in spite of, not because of help from that particular community. They set traps all along the way. So again, to purify the sanctuary and rededicate it. So Chanukah, the Chanach, is to dedicate or to rededicate. We dedicate our lives and we rededicate our lives. If we miss something or something, we come back to Yah. Okay? So the whole army assembled and went up to Mount Zion, with Sion. They found the sanctuary desolate, the altar desecrated, the gates burnt. Weeds were growing in the courts as in a forest. And on some mountain, and the Kohanim, the priest chambers, were demolished. Okay. But they tore their clothes and made great lamentation. They sprinkled their heads with ashes, fell on their faces to the ground. And when the signal was given with the shofar, they cried out to the Shemayim, okay? The Chanach, the importance of dedication. And continuing here. Okay, Yehuda appointed men to attack those in the citadel while he purified the sanctuary. He chose blameless Kohanim, devoted to Torah, because remember, they were the renegades. They were those who had infiltrated their ranks with paganistic ideas and liberal allegorical understandings. No, we need to have real consecrated Kohanim. And as we see in the history of the Hasmoneans, this was not held on for very long. But at this time, the window was open for this. Okay. And these purified, not just anyone, but people who were truly pure before Yahuwah, with a pure heart, a lev tahor. These purified the sanctuary and carried away the stones of the abomination, which is the idolatrous altar. You know, the altar was used for profane offerings. You can't just clean it up with Ajax and give it a good scrubbing. This needs to be gone. And they deliberated. Okay, the stones of abomination, okay? And they brought it to an unclean place. They deliberated what should be done with the altar of the Olah, of the burnt offerings that had been desecrated. Not dedicated, but desecrated, the exact opposite. The happy thought came to them to tear it down, lest it be a lasting shame to them that the pagans had defiled it. So they tore down the altar. They stored the stones in a suitable place on the temple hill, okay, until the prophet should come and decide what to do with them. And then, of course, we see the prophet, the Navi. Who could they possibly be talking about? And we see in Devarim 18, 15, and 18, it says, Yahuwah your Elohim will rise up for you. A Navi, a prophet, like me from your midst, from your brethren, him you shall hear, Shema, the words of this Navi, We need to shema. Need to hear, listen, and understand. Okay, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. Just as Messiah would teach, he says, this is not my teaching, this is my Father who sent me. He's the one who gave me these words, right? And we go to Yochanan chapter 10, verse 22. This is a really cool part here. Unless you're familiar with it, this is going to be really cool. Okay? So in chapter 10 of Yochanan 22, this was winter. Now it was the feast of dedication in Jerusalem, and it was winter. And Yeshua walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Okay? And Mashiach only came to Jerusalem for the Moedim. He only came for special occasions, right? When he was in Jerusalem, they would stay in a room in the temple because Herod's temple was enormous. It was very large, okay? Many buildings and such, okay? And in kainia, which is the word for dedication in the Greek, which means dedication, initiation, consecration, renewal. In Solomon's porch is where the Talmudim would meet even after the Messiah had ascended. Okay? Then the Jews surrounded him and said to him, how long will you keep us in suspense? How long will you keep us in doubt? If you are the Mashiach, tell us plainly. So, Mashiach would indeed inform them concerning regarding the stones, right, of the old altar. So remember, they were told that Chanukah, when we remember the old altar, that we took it apart, and that the prophet would come and tell us what to do with this old altar. So when again, please tell us. We need to know. This is Chanukah. This is the time when, if you are the prophet, tell us. And of course, that prophet was synonymous with Mashiach. So that's why they're saying, if you are the anointed one, the Mashiach, tell us. And Yeshua answered them and said, I told you, and you did not believe me. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. The works speak louder than words. The words speak for him. The works that he does. This is proof of who he is. Okay? But you do not believe because you are not of my sheep, as I said to you. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall anyone snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. Okay? They sought Messiah, who was the great rock, Ma'ut Tzor, the rock of salvation, right? But also the stone of offense to those who don't believe, to inform them regarding the defiled stones of an altar, when he himself shall become an asham, a sin offering for them. So again, the altar had to be made new altar for the asham to be offered, and Mashiach himself in his coming would be an actual asham for them. So it's like there's just so many levels of understanding regarding these events. Then they took uncut stones, according to Torah, and built a new altar like the former one. And we see Exodus 20, verse 25. Gives us that info. So early in the morning, verse 52, of the 25th day of the 9th month, they arose and offered sacrifice according to Torah on the new altar for burnt offerings. And that they had made, okay. On the anniversary of the day on which the pagans had defiled it, on the very same day, 3 years later, since the sacrifice to the idol of Zeus, 3 years exactly to the day, the 25th of the 9th month, it was reconsecrated with songs, harps, flutes, and cymbals. For 8 days, they celebrated the dedication of the altar, again, Chanukah, and joyfully offered sacrifices of deliverance and praise. Bamidbar, Numbers 784. So this is after the first Hanukkah with Solomon in the original temple, right? This was the dedication offering for the altar for the leaders of Israel when it was anointed. 12 silver platters, 12 silver bowls, and 12 gold pans. Again, this is the united Israel, right? 3 times 12. The 3 being the unifying factor of Kadosh standing, right? The number 12. So the dedication offering for the altar. So again, this was during the time predating Solomon, which was during the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Okay, verse 59. Then Yehuda and his brothers, the entire congregation of Israel, back to the Maccabees, okay? The entire congregation of Israel decreed that the days of the dedication of the Hanukkah, of the altar, should be observed with joy and gladness on the anniversary every year for 8 days, to the 25th of the 9th month, with rejoicing and gladness. Nes Gadol Chaya Sham, rather. A great miracle happened there. So if you are the Messiah, tell us plainly. I did tell you, but you did not believe. Okay, the works, the miracles I do, my Father's name, speak of me. So that is the Nes Gadol, the great miracles. Happened there, happened in the land, happened in the first century as well. So we get back to Josephus. And from that time to this, we celebrate this festival and call it Orim, or lights. I suppose the reason was because this liberty beyond our hope appeared to us, and that thence was the name given to that festival. So Hanukkah was called Orim, was lights, the feast of lights. Okay. Let me just read over here. Okay. Hanukkah memorializes an event that occurred after Tanakh was written and before the Brit Chadashah was written. Okay. It is only the third of 4 dedications listed in the scriptures. The fourth being an event that is currently in progress. Hanach. 3 times the temple in Jerusalem was dedicated or rededicated, and now Hanukkah is presently underway. Number 4, universal and far-reaching. You notice after the Romans got finished with the temple, there was no Hanukkah. There was no let's rededicate the temple. No. The temple was rededicated in Shavuot, in Pentecost, when the Talmudim and the Shlachim were anointed. The believers in Mashiach were the temple now, and they are dedicated, and they are rededicated. You know, Shaul, the Apostle Paul, right? He was dedicated, a rabbi, right? But he met Mashiach, and he became rededicated. He became truly a Yehudi. Okay? And where do we see this radical idea? Well, we go to Shaul's writings himself. 1 Corinthians 3:16. Do you not know that you, speaking plural, are the temple, singular, of Elohim, and that the Ruach of Elohim dwells in you? Because remember that Ichabod, the glory departs. When Mashiach had that last discourse with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he gave them the 7 woes, remember? And again, the word for woe is not with a fist. It's a sadness. It's anger, but it's like, oh, alas, what could have been? Again, like gathering the chicks under his wings. And we talked about the wings with the tzitziot, remember? That was an important teaching. I hope you got that one. the corner of the garment, the hem of the garment of Mashiach. That's a very important teaching. Not because it's mine, but because it is. I'm like Jimmy Olsen, or Lois Lane. I'm a reporter, a stubborn reporter that needs to get the news, all the facts, man. That's it. And I hope this is told so far. We're going in this direction, which I think we need to. The fourth of the Hanukkah celebrations of dedication are occurring right now as we dedicate ourselves to Yah. And I just pray that we understand that Yah means business. He did not spare his people when they refused to receive correction. And he said the Assyrians, he said the Babylonians, the Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. And they were sent by Yah himself. Oh, it's tragic that Satan said, no. Israel was put through the fire. And like we see in the book of Daniel, remember the Hebrew children, the young Hebrew men were put in the fire. And again, it's number 4. There was a fourth man in that fire with them. Fourth man. And they were galvanized and they survived because of that fourth man. And the memory and the reality of the coming together of the people of Yah is no longer confined to a building, but to an idea and to a body that was prepared for Messiah. We are that very body. So do you not know that you, plural, are the Beit HaMikdash, the singular, plural or singular of Elohim? So we are plural in the sense that we are one, Echad, the one location, which is not restricted to any land. It's not restricted to the threshing floor that David had purchased for the first Beit HaMikdash. And that the Ruach of Elohim dwells in you. If anyone defiles the temple of Elohim, he will destroy him. Again, anyone who wants to be Epiphanies, you're going down. For the temple of Elohim, who is you, is Kadosh, which temple you are. Which temple you are. Not that you work in, not that you worship in, but that you are. You are the place where the Ruach needs to be and where you're not defiling. You need to be clean. You need to come clean and make teshuvah. Okay? 1 Corinthians 6:18. Flee sexual immorality, because every sin that a man does is outside the body. But he who commits sexual immorality sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body, singular, we had it plural first and singular second, okay, that your temple, your body, your singular body, is the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh, who is in you, whom you have from Elohim, and you are not your own. For you are bought at a price. Therefore, glorify Elohim in your body and in your Ruach, which are Elohim. We've been purchased at a price. People talk about being possessed. Are you possessed? I'm going to do a teaching on that next few weeks also. The idea we think of possession as being a satanic thing. But we need to understand that we are possessed by Yah. We've been purchased by our price, at a great price. And we're no longer our own. I'm no longer my own. I belong to my wife, and my wife is no longer her own. She belongs to me. And together, we create the true unity. Okay? Okay. Where was we? Here we go. Second Corinthians 6:16. What agreement has the temple of Elohim, the house of Elohim, with idols? For you are the temple of the living Elohim, El Chai. As Elohim has said, I will dwell in them and walk among them. Interesting, walking in us and dwelling within us, and taking the walk, taking the stroll. His halach, his teachings are within us. Just like Yirmiyahu 31:31 says, and the Brit Hadashah will be when my Torah is written in your minds and in your heart. Then you will be my people and I will be your Elohim. Then we prove ourselves. We show Yah that we are faithful and true in our Beit HaMikdash, the temple that has been dedicated to Yah. Okay. I will be their Elohim and they will be my people. Amen. Therefore, come out from among them and be separate. Be distinct from them. Be distinct. And that's the root of the word holy, to be distinct, set apart, unique. Even as Yah is set apart and unique. There's none to share his glory. He's not like the other Elohim of this world, of stone and wood. Especially Hollywood. All these pretenders claim to be wise, but they're fools. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you. So what is unclean? I don't know, because the law has been done away with. And this whole thing of antinomianism is so foolish. It's like walking through life like this. We don't see in 3D. And as a result, we have no depth perception. And we stumble. I used to love, I still kind of love 3D stuff like holograms and 3D stuff with the glasses and things, where you see depth in the screen, or comic books. I probably have still some comics 3D with the glasses, the red and the blue, right? And after you take them off, you start, oh wow, mine's green, mine's blue. But you see the depth. And unless we know this stuff, we don't have the depth perception. We do not perceive the depth of the word. We have it written on a page for us, but the Ruach gives us that added dimension. The word on the page is 2 dimensions. We need that depth. We need that sense of depth, of space, of the place where Yah would have us be. And we see in the book of Acts, chapter 17:24, Elohim, who made the world and everything in it, since he is Yahuwah of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, but he does dwell in the temples made by the Ruach, that we would be dwelling with Yah. He wants to dwell with his people. He always wanted to dwell with his people, just like he walked with Adam in the Ruach of the day. He walked, the idea of the character development taking place with instruction and information and love, relationship. Some people just think of Torah as being something do's and don'ts, and not adding dimension to our lives. But we have to look outside of the word. And the word tells us, don't go beyond what is written. Don't go beyond what is written. And that's why the whole idea of an oral law that actually superimposes itself on the written Torah, and it is actually preferred by many, is ludicrous. We can't do that. And we're going to wrap it up with Kifa Aleph, 1 Peter 2, verse 4 and 5. Come to him as to a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by Elohim. Okay? And precious. You also, as living stones, are being built up as a special house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim through Yeshua the Mashiach. Messiah is the focal point. He's the goal at which the Torah aims. He's the focal point of history. Just like when you read the Tanakh, you see the word comes to somebody and talks to them. You see the Malach Yahuwah, the angel, the messenger of Yah, coming and speaking to the person that he's been sent to, and speaks and as Elohim in the first person. It's and again I quote from this Kifa thing so much because we need to understand the idea of the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, and we had actually pagans helped to build the first temple. We had the influence of paganism throughout. Even the temple of Herod was a pagan king. He was not a true melech. He was a political appointee, and all that was adapted going back to the Hasmonean era, right? And so, in order to curry favor with Israel, he makes this thing. But we walk not by faith. We walk by faith, not by sight. Even after Mashiach left the temple for the last time, and his Talmudim say, hey, did you check out these buildings? They're all beautiful. You know, what pleases the eye, but it's filled of dead men's bones. And he, as the anointed, cannot inhabit an unclean area. He must come out from there. And we must come out from there. Come out from among them. You know. And Messiah did not come with a kumbaya moment. He came with the sword to divide us from things and even people who would destroy us unintentionally, or maybe intentionally in some cases, but their ways are not our ways. We've experienced a new birth, right? A birth from above, not from religion, not from any club, but from a personal relationship with the Most High. And that's what we want to emphasize with Hanukkah, this day, the 25th of Kislev, of the 9th month. And this coming Shabbat, I'm going to share from the book of Daniel, the reason why the temple was, and the dates, why the temple. And we'll see some very interesting things there. Definitely, I guarantee you. And we're going to talk about Armageddon as well. So stay tuned. It's coming Shabbat. Again, most people will see, they're going to talk about Hanukkah. He's going to light candles. He's going to spin dreidels. They're going to give out little chocolate coins. And, that's all man-made stuff. So it's the tradition of man, which is not necessarily evil or bad, but it's distracting. When people think of Hanukkah, they don't think of, I need to dedicate my life to Yah. And that's what I need to do. That's what I've got to do. And we must be demonstrative in this decision. The decision must be lived out, not just something to, I didn't know that. It's being committed to it. Commitment is the byproduct of dedication. We've come to know it as emet, as truth. And as Kifa says, where else are we going to go? You have the words of truth, of eternity. Where else are we going to go? We're going to go to plan B? Are you kidding me? We're going to go to plan. It's ludicrous to think of those things. And we're told that not to even let certain things enter our minds. Don't even give it a moment's notice, please. Because those moments have a way of triggering something, which will trigger something, and it'll spiral. That's why Mashiach, when he talked about adultery and he talked about murder, he says it all starts in the noodle, And it starts with, I really don't like that guy. I really don't like that guy. I really, really don't like that. In fact, I hate him. I wish he would just die. And we see that. It grows, it grows, it grows. That lust, she's attractive. I really like her. I really would like to hold her. And hamana. It all starts here. But the thing is, we've been given the freedom to take a good pair of scissors or shears, if it's really tough, and nip it in the bud. Cancel it at the point of origin. Don't let it grow. Don't let it become anything but a passing thought. And let it pass. Let it pass. Don't let it germinate. You need to nip it. Terminate it at the point of inception. We need to be tough. We need to be strong. Remember, chazak is the idea of strength. When we read in the Siddur each Shabbat, we talk about Yah gives us people strength. He gives us people peace also. And they're not on opposite corners, strength as opposed to peace. take a nap, right? But our peace, our shalom, is all about wellness, not just physical wellness, but spiritual wellness and vitality. And again, that strength alludes to that same unified force of vitality. In Him we live, we move, we have our being, we have purpose. We move. That's what a nefesh is. Our soul is a living, breathing being. Living, breathing being. And we need to exist and understand our existence better. That we serve a living Yah. And we serve each other. And it's an important thing for us to understand. So I'm going to end it there. I was able to get that done in just a tad over 1 hour. So again, that's Hanukkah for you. We didn't focus on the gift giving and all this stuff. And I did that with my children. I would buy a little something for 8 days, and it was nice. The lights are nice, and it's just a lot of nice stuff. Which is why a lot of people have a hard time getting away from Xmas. And the fact that, and we can talk about it another time, about the time of the year and all that stuff. But I just praise you. I'm so grateful for all you wonderful people to join us tonight. And for those who would be joining us later on, checking us out, either later on tonight or in the next few days, we're very thankful. And we've been getting a lot of good people checking us out on the midweek MIDrash, as well as on the Shabbat. Oh, Gershon. Amen. Amen. That's it. That's it. That's dedication right there. Baruch Hashem, Yahusha, Mashiach. Yes, indeed. He lives. He lives. And because He lives, we can face tomorrow. H.A. Wonderful. Teach. Thank you. We get free food. San Diego County, Inland. Be great to meet family. Yes. Yes, Valerie. See you on Shabbat. Yes, Valerie. And I wish that somehow you Cali people, and again, it's a big state, I realize that, but that somehow you guys can intersect a little bit and chat. And, you three have been very special to us, and I pray that you're not isolated, that you're able to communicate, and that we've given you a little island by which you can meet together at least twice a week. And I'll give you a couple of minutes before I sign off. So if you want to touch base, Maine, Central California, about 45 miles south of. Okay, Valerie, that's tough. That's tough. That's good stuff. Again,
hello. Please leave a message after the tone.
Uh-oh. Oh, man. Well, praise Yah. Praise Yah for His goodness and His kindness. And again, we'll be meeting on Shabbat, Yah willing. And I think He is willing. He wants us to commiserate and share, and as it's recorded historically that during this time of the year they celebrate it. They call it Orim, lights. And we are lights, right? And we are dedicated to the Most High. And in spite all of our religious and psychological searchings and delving into the things that we dedicate ourselves for, now we can rededicate ourselves to the Most High. And even rededicate ourselves and the purposes that Yah has made us, and that He uses our strengths, that we don't get frustrated, that we are not capable of doing everything, but Yah has given each one of you something very special, a special gift, a special strength from which you can function and operate. And again, these teachings are meant to give you the ammunition. People say, well, Hanukkah, what do you keep in Hanukkah for? Isn't that just like Jewish Christmas? And you say, no, not at all. And you can roll off this list, and I encourage you to do that. I'm literally in place. Oh gosh, that's funny. As I was saying earlier, that you're in Gershon, and Gershon isn't Valerie. or in the valley. That would be close. Anyway, but I just pray that you're all well, and I pray especially for our sister H.A. with her situation, and my sister here, Patricia, with some finagling going on with her bank, and we need to pray for each other. We do. We do. Honestly, we do every day. In our prayers, we remember every single one of you. Every single one of you.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Okay.
No.
Okay. No good. We're gonna say good night now. Shalom, shalom. Lila Tov, guys. Pat, Gilbert, take care now.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Talk to you tomorrow night, okay?
Okay.
Amen. Okie dokie. So, so I'm just grateful that you guys decided to check us out and not turn your nose up at us. Oh, I'm talking about Hanukkah. I'm not really into Hanukkah. Well, that's okay. I was really into it for a long time, and then seeing historically what's going on with that and such, I just want to focus on dedication and historically understanding where this comes from, because we need to delve deeper. Just like I said before, we need to have the full depth perception of what we can see, what we can observe, and how we can grow and encourage each other and feed together, break bread together. Spiritually speaking, we're breaking bread tonight. So again, I thank you so much for joining us. And we're so grateful for you guys turning out tonight. Very, very tov. And again, we will come together, Yah willing, on Shabbat morning at 11 a.m., which unfortunately is way back at 8 o'clock out the west there, right? So you guys make sure you set that alarm or have the rooster crow outside your window, one way or the other. And also we'll be able to have our UK brothers, otherwise known as No Name and Bouncer, both in Ireland and England. So we just pray for them. We pray that you're watching us on the rerun. Check us out, please. And again, look at our library of teachings. There's a lot of very interesting teachings that we've gone through. I might rehash a few once in a while that we can reemphasize, and whatever. We still want to bake fresh batter each week, though, for sure. But again, we're so thankful for you. We love you and we pray for you. And be well, be strong, and be at shalom. So for tonight, we say Laila Tov Ulahitraot, which is good night, y'all. And we will check you out a little further down the road. Be well, be strong. Be dedicated.